in America. And of course, all the patriots were up in arms about it. But this came up to bill every October, in the beginning of October, every year during the Clinton era. Every year it was shut down. Every year they were like, hell no, that's the most unconstitutional bill I've ever heard of. So in this way, I knew that they were going to need a reason. They were obviously going to need a reason to force this thing into action. Every time it came up, they shut it down. So when they railroaded the W into office, that was when I knew. Now, if you know the story of Dune, then you'll understand our story a little more, because Bush is like the evil emperor's son, and Obama as the good emperor's son. You know, he was here to soften us all up, and now Obama's coming to save us. So when the W was railroaded into office, I said, there's going to be a major terrorist attack to forward this Homeland Security bill. And I knew that it would take about 2 weeks of people's reaction time for the event. So I said in the middle of September there's going to be a major terrorist attack in 2001. I had been talking about it for a number of years because I expected it all during the Clinton era. But when the W was forced into office, I knew that would be it. So I went, and just like a group of people like you, and I said, hey, there's going to be a major terrorist attack on 9/11. And I chose that date because that was the date HW announced the New World Order for the first time publicly. And I know how ritual these people are. So I chose that date, just basically random, but knowing that there was a purpose to it, and saying, okay, on 9/11 there's going to be a major terrorist attack. Don't freak out. This is for your reaction. Those were my words. And when it happened, I actually had a whole line of people at my door going, how did you know? I don't know how I know. I'm just following the script that I believe, that I understand. And so I'm coming to give you the rest of this story because I followed that prediction up with, well, W will be the last American president. Now, one thing I want to get over to you is how miraculous the story has been. And I think it's in the miracles of how this all falls together that makes it really the true story. Because if I were just giving you this data and facts and everything and saying, well, this is just the science that I've been figuring out, it's not. I have not gone looking for any of this information. It keeps coming and finding me, and I feel like I am required to share it with you. Because when I had the 9/11 prediction, I didn't tell anyone. I told people at a party, you know. And I think I might have been able to change the world if I had said something. So I have new predictions for you, and I've continued with my predictions, and I have not been wrong yet. My latest one was public. It was on 10/13. And I decided to make this one public just to test my hypothesis and make it all public. No one seemed to notice. So I, for 2 years, went around talking about 10/13 and explaining the significance of this to the Templars. And then on 10/13, as I predicted, I never know what's going to happen. And that's where I hope people will take my knowledge and apply it to a more real-world scenario. Because I didn't know they were going to hit the Twin Towers. I just knew they needed a terrorist attack and that they'd do it on this day. 10/13, I could have put together, I could have realized that 10/13 is the day the Templars were all killed. In 1307, Pope Clement and King Philip came together and said, let's kill off these Templars. They're too rich and powerful. And it was on 10/13 that they killed the Templars. So this is a ritual date for the Templars, and the Templars are the prefab of the Freemasons that are ruling our nation today. So I used their dates to make my predictions because I'm watching them. And it wasn't simply that 10/13 was just there. If you notice, the Pentagon's cornerstone was dated to 9/11, 1941. It just happened to be hit on 9/11, 2001. And I did have data showing that the Twin Towers cornerstone, which was Masonically laid in both cases, also was dated to 9/11. And actually just realized that Captain William Morgan, who exposed the Freemasons for the first time and was ritually murdered back in the 1700s, was also killed on 9/11. Just a curious little connection there. So when I looked at these things, I was saying, okay, here's the date, here's the ritual date. And if I had taken it one step further and recognized the Templar connection with the fiat currency, I could have given you a fuller projection of what was going to happen. And sure enough, on 10/13, that was the day when Bernanke and Paulson pulled all the 9 CEOs of all the banks together and said, you've got to sign these documents, signing over all your assets, and that's when the finances collapsed. And their headline and Austin Chronicle, of all places, says 1013 bigger than 9/11. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I've been saying this for 2 years now, you know. I was on talking with the High Priest Church of Satan, 1013. You can watch all that on freemantv.com. I have all of this stuff live on my websites, freemantv.com or the freemanperspective.blogspot.com, and you can watch me talking about all of this. So I start with this man, and I start to understand that, there is a list. There's a list of enemies that we're going to have to deal with. And the first was the Red Scare. And this list comes from a Nazi that came over and joined NASA and just happened to be hanging out with Walt Disney. If you know who Walt Disney is, man, you'll start to get a good clue as to what's going on. Werner von Braun was a Nazi scientist brought over here to help NASA get into space. He came out and said, look, the extraterrestrials are malevolent. The governments are trying to have a war with the extraterrestrials that are trying to visit us. Do not allow them to weaponize space. And he started the Space Preservation Treaty, which Dennis Kucinich is a champion of. And they're like, keep the weapons out of space. This is the whole thing. So he says, all right, what's going to happen is they're going to hit you with the Red Scare, the Cold War, and that's going to start the whole agenda of the technological advancements into space war. Then they're going to hit you with terrorism, which is what came next. But most people believe that the next part of the program is extraterrestrials. But that's not what Werner von Braun said. He said the next step is asteroids. And so I took this data and I watched as just currently Obama decides to couple the DoD with NASA. And this is exactly what Werner von Braun was talking about. So what they're doing now is coupling NASA with the DoD. They're going to retire the space shuttles. The shuttle Atlantis just launched last May 11th. And the Endeavour is waiting to launch just in case the Atlantis has problems. They're going up to the Hubble Space Shuttle or Space Telescope and hoping to repair it. They're having 5 spacewalks in order to try and repair or get these new cameras, because there will not be any more space shuttles. They are retiring the Columbia Endeavour for the discovery of Atlantis. Maybe they already discovered Atlantis. I don't know. So just as Werner von Braun had been predicting, he started the very first thing Obama did when he came into presidency was saying, oh, okay, we're going to couple the DoD with NASA, and we're going to start what's known as the Ares space program. And if you know Ares as the god Mars, which is the god of war, we're going into a warfare space program. And this is what they were talking about. Well, so just last week, they tried to launch the Minotaur out of Virginia. Now, who knew we could launch rockets from Virginia? I didn't. There's actually only been 2 launches, and both of them were Minotaurs as well. And what they were launching are these TechSat-3 satellites and these special cubes, sat cubes, CubeSats. So there's going to be 5 satellites that were supposed to be launched last week, but they kept having problems with the weather, and then they needed the Virginia site to launch the Atlantis, so this whole rocket was scrubbed. But they will be launching this Minotaur space-based weaponry out of Virginia sometime soon. The question comes, who is Barack Obama? Who is this guy? His name doesn't even seem to be Barack Obama, but Barry Soetoro. He was asked to supply his identification, anything any one of us has to do at all times, and he couldn't do it. He supplied a faulty birth certificate without a seal, without any notification, without anything necessary on it. And so there you go.
Heard the rumors about Barack Obama's citizenship? These are the facts. The Constitution requires the president to be a natural-born citizen. Obama's grandmother said she was there when Barack was born in Kenya. Obama refuses to release his original birth certificate. Instead of a birth certificate, Obama's campaign posted a certification given to those born abroad. Experts have called even that document an obvious forgery. Obama attended school in Indonesia as Barry Soetoro, when only Indonesian citizens were permitted to attend. Obama's school records list his father as Lolo Soetoro, and Obama's citizenship as Indonesia. Obama traveled to Pakistan in 1981, when it was illegal to enter as a U.S. citizen. 16 lawsuits and 2 cases before the Supreme Court now challenge Obama's citizenship. Fact. Our Constitution still matters.
So when I stated that George Bush would be the last American president, this is what I meant. And I kind of get a little flaky with my predictions, you know, and I leave them kind of esoteric. But that's really what I meant when I was saying W would be the last American president, because they want to do away with the Constitution. They want to do away with all of these ideas of nationalism and everything else and form the global, which was the message of God, the spirit of God that surrounded the Ark of the Covenant. So when we went in and stormed Baghdad, and they called it the Shock and Awe campaign, that was a play on the word Shekinah, because the Freemasons know all about the Shekinah. It's part of their ritual. And the Shekinah, the Shock and Awe, came down and struck Saddam Hussein, who was claiming to be Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated. I don't know if you saw that headline, but it said CIA cannot disprove Saddam's claims to be Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated. All in the newspaper. Everything I say is in the newspaper. Yeah. And he's rebuilding Nebuchadnezzar's palace with masonry with his name all over it, saying that he is Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated. The Shock and Awe is the same as the Shekinah. The Shock and Awe comes down and strikes Nebuchadnezzar, Saddam Hussein, using the mother of all bombs that they had just created, this new ultimate weapon that was just below a nuke. And it just happens that they call the mother of all bombs the Moab in military acronyms. Well, the Moabites are the ones that took out Nebuchadnezzar. So you got Saddam Hussein, you got this Shock and Awe coming in taking Nebuchadnezzar using the Moabs. It happened to begin on the vernal equinox and end on Walpurgis night. Barack Obama, a.k.a. Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barry Dunham, the name Barack Obama, we're looking at a serious name game going on because we're looking at Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, Barack's in charge of Israel, you know, and Hussein, the Muslim world. So we've got this split bipolarity going on, and I've been detecting this going out through the whole election. So we had man against woman. We had him who's black and white. We have his name, Barack Hussein, and then he invites Israel, Ram Emanuel Israel, Ram Israel, to be his in his administration. So we have all of these plays on his name. Well, Barak means blessed in Swahili or Arabic. But in Hebrew, Barak means lightning. And so if you were to read the Bible, it would say, and Satan fell like Barak. If you read the line that says, and Satan fell like lightning. The original Hebrew word is Barak. So it would say, and he fell like Barak. But another story is that Muhammad's horse that he's to return on, the pale horse, is also named Barak. And so there's a bit of a name game going on with that, and the pale horse might be Barak. That's the name of Muhammad's horse. And in this dichotomy, this man, Albert Pike, who's standing right next to George Washington on this temple, is a war criminal who is reputed to have started the Ku Klux Klan and is pretty evil magician. And he is the one who outlined and written all of the rituals for the higher Scottish Rite Freemasonry. So the degrees that go up above 3 were written by this man, Albert Pike. Well, he read a letter to another Freemason known as Mazzini, who is the M in Mafia, and he told them how they were going to establish World War III. And he also outlined World War I and World War II. But you're going to see that he was saying, okay, we've got to get these polarities going. So first thing we got to do is get the Muslims and the Zionists fighting. So what's going on? You know, we got the Zionists and the Muslims. And so what they were saying is, you know, we got to get the Christians and the atheists fighting each other to kill each other off. And he goes on to state that without knowing where to render its adoration, the people will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. So this is truly their religion, is the religion of Lucifer, and it's the religion of manipulating life. It's the religion of being in charge, in power. All the things that I've given you as examples, the 9/11, the use of a dollar, all of these things take away the divine power in life. And I'm hoping to reestablish that divine right. Because what I have discovered, and what happened was, as Obama was inaugurated, they had the first gay Episcopal cardinal, or Gene Robinson, give his prayer at the One World Conference. and the day before the inauguration, and he opened his prayer to the God of many understandings, because nobody was allowed to use the name of Jesus in Barack's campaign, because the atheists were suing him. Right? So they're fomenting war on every battle that they can. They're planting gardens at the White House while establishing House Resolution 875 to say you can't have an organic garden. Yeah. They're trying to piss you off. They're making you broke and poor while they're throwing $1 million parties at the White House. Obama made $600 million on his campaign and book sales, and then he gave 25 DVDs to Gordon Brown as a present. You know, they're trying to piss people off. That's their whole goal. That's what the Obamas are here to do, is to make you fight against each other. The other prayers that they had, the next one was to the God, God of many understandings, and then the Lord of all nations, by Rick Warren, and he even ended that with Amen, and we'll get to why he was worshiping Amen. So Barack talks much about his religion, which he doesn't seem to really have much of one if you look at it from a traditional standpoint, but it was very curious when he made this remark.
What I was suggesting, you're absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that that has not
Christian
come...
faith.
My Christian faith.
Yeah, whatever. So many people think that he might be the Antichrist, and so some have used the typical techniques of trying to understand Satanism in reverse speech. Reverse speech is one of Satan's favorite tools. I'm going to jump that ahead a little bit.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Let's give Satan. 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 Let's give Satan.
That's what you get when you play Yes We Can backwards. Thank you, Satan. Yes, he can. Thank you, Satan. Yes, he can. But I don't go that route. Okay, I believe that the Bible is kind of a script that they're following. I think an Armageddon type of scenario that they're outlining and setting up and following, and it's actually maybe extraterrestrial in origin. And I guess you're going to have to get to my DVDs to get to more of the extraterrestrial connections, because I'm going to try and get this done here. Okay, so the questions of Obama's bloodline and who he is, distant relations to Bush, right? Well, they also found that the bloodline runs through a number of other families, which are very curious. I found it very curious that we have never gotten rid of the aristocracy. We like to believe that we have, that we're electing people into office, and that celebrities are just there because they're really good at what they do. But when you start to track bloodlines and understand who these people are, and that they are basically Egyptian revived, if you realize that we're just in another Egyptian culture, and that these people keep their bloodlines intact, and this is why they have sex with their sisters and mothers and daughters, and they have to keep a genetic bloodline. And I sometimes wonder if that's what I have. Is this what channeled this information for me? Because, I'm doing this at 10 not knowing what it means, but all of a sudden, 20 years later, I find out what it all means, and it all has to do with what my dad's doing. So I believe in genetic memory. Genetic memory is a scientifically proven fact. So if we realize that these guys are trying to keep a particular memory together and interbreed so that this memory is passed down, then you start to realize, because, what are the odds that Hillary is related to Angelina Jolie and Obama's related to Brad Pitt? Right? McCain's related to Britney Spears, and George Bush is related to Marilyn Monroe. And they're all related to Vlad the Impaler. But they introduce other bloodlines into there every now and again, if they feel they need a little bit more matricing. Oh, and Hillary's also related to Madonna. Madonna and Angelina Jolie. And Celine Dion, who has happened to be with the hologram representation of Elvis on American Idol.
She does look like
She
that.
has his eyes. I never realized that.
Pauline Pierce, her mother, went off to France with this old man to have a sexual ritual, which the OTO do. No one knows for sure if she came back pregnant or got pregnant afterwards, but she came back and gave birth to little Barbara right after her reunion with Aleister Crowley. Yeah. And so this man actually is the son of a beast. or the grandson of the beast, being that he was known as the beast.
Evil man in the world.
He was known as the most evil man in the world. Yeah. Okay, so I've been tracking all these type of symbolic gestures and everything that's going on, and I realized that like when W went to visit the Pope, they visited in St. John's Tower on 10/13 or Friday the 13th, which is the 10/13 that the Templars were killed. That's why Friday the 13th is the most unlucky day. George W. Bush goes visit the Pope, and he takes him to St. John's Tower, which is in honor of the Templars in 10/13, and they do it on Friday the 13th. And this has never happened before. They don't bring guests to St. John's Tower.
What's his hand signal he's doing?
Yeah, isn't that funny? He's a UT fan. Yeah. Okay, well, let's keep it straight that Pope Ratzinger, who took on Pope Benedict, which is the name of the title of the guy who was in charge of the Templars, and also the Pope that was in charge during World War I. They choose these names very carefully. Benedict is Benedict's rule, which is the rule that created the Templars, and he has now established that the Templars are okay, we didn't find any problem, we actually